Hey, what is going on guys? RvzStealth here, and in today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys my opinion on the best junglers for patch 6.6. So first up is Graves. In my opinion, Graves is one of the best damage junglers in the game right now. As long as you know how to kite with him and you can position well in teamfights, then the amount of burst damage you can get out in a teamfight with Graves is absolutely crazy. He's pretty good at all stages of the game too. You can argue that his early game is a little bit weaker since he doesn't have strong crowd control in his kit. However, as long as you do have red buff and you can get your W on the opponent, then you can definitely make ganks work in the early game with Graves. He's pretty mobile too. His E is a gap closer, and it's also on a relatively short cooldown since whenever you do auto attack, the cooldown of your E does get reduced. He takes minimal damage in the jungle as well. He's one of the strongest junglers in the game when it comes to staying healthy in the jungle, since he does have his passive, which allows him to just knock back the camps, and it just allows him to pretty much stay at full HP all the time when he is farming the jungle. He is one of the hardest snowballing junglers in the game as well. Once you do get a few items on Graves, then you start to do a load of damage. A few cons to him though are that he does not have any crowd control, so his ganks in the early game can be a little bit lackluster at times. And he does also have a shorter auto attack range when you're comparing him to the average range champion in the game, so you do have to be careful about your positioning when you are playing as him. Next up is going to be Gragas. So unlike Graves, Gragas is actually one of the stronger early game junglers in the game. He's got his Q and his E at level 3, which are both strong crowd control abilities. So as long as he can hit his E when he's ganking, follow that up with his Q, then he should at least be able to burn the enemy's flash. He's got really strong CC, his Q, his E, and his ultimate all provide good crowd control. He's an AP bruiser champion too, so when I play Gragas, I like to go Runic Echoes, follow that up with an Iceborne Gauntlet, and then after that, I'll probably end up going full tank. It does depend on the situation though. If my team's snowballing really hard, I might go like Abyssal Scepter after the Iceborne Gauntlet, or I might go some more AP, but usually what I'll do is I'll go the Echoes, Iceborne Gauntlet, and then full tank. He does have really good ganks at level 6 due to his ultimate, since it does provide the good knockback. So when you are playing as Gragas, what I would recommend doing is just look for a gank down bot lane at level 6, because you've got great crowd control, so as long as you can hit your abilities, you should be able to pick up a kill. He also has really good disengage and engage with his strong crowd control abilities, and his clear speeds are actually some of the best in the game too. The buff that he got to his W just allows him to clear the jungle even faster now, because he's got the AoE damage coming out of his W as well as his Q. And the gap closer on his E also allows him to gank really effectively and get away from sticky situations. One con to Gragas though is that, in my opinion, he's a bit harder to play than some of the other junglers, since his ultimate can be hard to land if you're newer to Gragas, and it does take some time to get used to, that's for sure. Next up is going to be Sejuani. So you guys might be a bit surprised about this choice here, but Sejuani did get a nice little buff in patch 6.5 to her E, and she's definitely a lot stronger now in my opinion. Sejuani's always been that champion where she's either really strong or she's just pretty weak and she's not played at all, and I feel that Sejuani is in a pretty good spot right now. As long as you can hit your crowd control when you're playing as Sejuani in teamfights, and you can get some good effective ganks off at level 6, then she can definitely be a very strong tanky engaged champion. She's got really strong crowd control in her kit. Her Q, her E, and her ultimate all provide good CC. Her clear speeds in the jungle are also really nice because she's got the AoE damage coming out of her W and her E. She does have pretty good damage for a tank too. When I play Sej, what I'll usually do is, if I'm ahead, I'll go Cinderhulk, and then after that I'll go for a Liandry's. If I'm ahead, that's what I'll do. But if I'm going even or if I'm behind, then I'll go Cinderhulk, and then I'll go full tank after that, and you can still do quite a bit of damage with Sej. She does have the gap closer on her Q as well, which is great for engaging and getting out of different situations. And one con to Sejuani though is that her ultimate can be hard to use in certain situations. It is a very rewarding ability if you can hit it, but if you miss Sejuani's ultimate, then you could just end up blowing that fight for your team. Next on my list is going to be Udyr. So Udyr has been receiving some nerfs these past few patches, but I don't really think that affects him too much. He's still a great pick for solo queue in my opinion, and his win rate is still up there at one of the highest for any jungler in the game right now. He's got great clear speeds in the jungle. The Runic Echoes item synergizes really well with him, and once he does pick that up, he can just clear the jungle really quickly, and he just stays really healthy in the jungle as well, since he does have his shield, which is on a relatively short cooldown, so he can just keep spamming that out. It also does give him some lifesteal as well, so he's gonna get the shield, he's gonna be lifestealing from that, and then he's gonna deal that AoE damage with his Phoenix stance too, so it just allows him to stay really healthy and clear the jungle really quickly. He's also a really strong dueling champion because he does have his stun, and if he's got red buff, then the enemies are not going to be able to escape an Udyr because he's just going to keep chasing after you. He also is an AP bruiser champion, so his build is very similar to Gragas. I like to go Runic Echoes, Iceborne Gauntlet, and then after that I'll go maybe one more damage item, or I'll probably end up going full tank after that. It just really does depend on the situation. He's also a pretty simple champion to play since he does not have any skill shots, so you're not really going to mess up too much when you are playing as Udyr. A few cons to Udyr are that he does have a bit of a lackluster teamfight, since if the enemy team does have good lockdown crowd control, then it can be hard for him to reach the back line at times, and he is also pretty weak if he does fall behind, since he doesn't have any long range crowd control and he doesn't have any good AoE damage. And lastly, on my top 5 for this patch, I have Shyvana. So right now, Shyvana has been seeing quite the resurgence in solo queue. She's got one of the highest pick rates and ban rates in the game right now, and I think that she is kind of like an Udyr 2.0. I think she's a bit stronger than Udyr right now because she does have, or she doesn't run on mana, and she also does scale a little bit better into the late game than Udyr does. She's got really good clear speeds with her AoE damage from her W. She also does have the auto attack reset with her Q, so make sure you are using that to clear the camps out really quickly. She's a great dueling champion too once she does pick up the challenging smite. Her tower pushing ability is also quite good because she does have the auto attack reset with her Q. The mobility that she has with her W allows her to get around the map really quickly, and it also does allow her to chase down her targets if she needs to. Her ganks at level 6 are pretty good since she does have the long range gap closer with her ultimate. Her late game is arguably one of the strongest for any champion in the game, since she's gonna have her Devourer stack, which is gonna allow her to deal a lot of damage, and she's gonna have tank items after that as well, so you can just soak a ton of damage in teamfights with Shyvana, but you can still deal a lot as well. And she's definitely one of the easier junglers in the game to play since she doesn't have any high damage or strong CC skill shots. She does have her E and her ultimate, which are both skill shots, but it's not like if you miss your E, that's gonna be game changing. Like, you can miss your E with Shyvana and you can still do really well. And her ultimate, as long as you can put it in the general direction of where the enemies are, then you should be able to do quite well on Shyvana. A few cons to Shyvana are that her early game presence is not the strongest since she doesn't have any crowd control in her kit, and she also can get kited pretty easily in teamfights if her ultimate is on cooldown. First up on the honorable mentions, I have Kindred. So this patch, items like Titanic Hydra and Runic Echoes got nerfed. Kindred's a champion or a jungler that did not build those items, so she kind of gets a little bit stronger this patch, and those junglers who did build those items kind of got an indirect nerf. So I think that Kindred's going to be a lot stronger now, and she could have maybe even been on my top 5. I just feel like there is a pretty big difference between like an average Kindred and a really good Kindred player, and I do think that she does have to have good decision making. You need to have good decision making when you are playing this champion, since her ultimate can be really strong if used correctly, but if you don't use it correctly, then you could just end up losing the game for your team. So she's a pretty good jungler this patch, and I would play her if you want to. Next up, I have Echo. So right now, Echo's jungle win rate is actually the highest for any role that he's played in. His mid and his top lane win rates are pretty low right now, but his jungle win rate is actually one of the highest for any jungler in the game. The Runic Echoes item synergizes really well with him, and he also is a champion who goes for that Echoes Iceborne Gauntlet build, which seems to be a build that works pretty well, and it just allows you to do a lot of damage, and you can still be pretty tanky since you do get the armor from the Iceborne Gauntlet. If you are looking for another good Runic Echoes jungler, then I would play Echo this patch. Next up is going to be Xin Zhao. So after the buff Xin Zhao got to his W, people were really hyping him up and they were saying he was like one of the most OP junglers in the game, but this patch I haven't seen a single Xin Zhao player, so it seems like that hype is kind of cooled down a little bit and he's not being played as often. I do think he is a pretty good pick though. He's got the crit on his W now, every third auto attack, and he also does synergize really well with the Devour item, so if you're looking to play Xin Zhao this patch, then I would definitely recommend doing it. Next up is Volibear. So Volibear is actually sitting at the second or third highest win rate for any jungler in the game right now, so obviously he is a pretty strong pick. He can build basically full tank and he can still do a lot of damage. The reason he's not on my top 5 though is because Voli's a champion who can get kited really easily if the enemy team does have good lockdown or good crowd control, and he's always been a champion that I never really liked just because I feel like if the enemy team does have good crowd control, you're kind of useless and you have to go for flash engages most of the time. So if the enemy team doesn't have very good crowd control, I would play him for sure, but if they do have a good lockdown team like a Nautilus, a Morgana, then picking him in that situation may not be the best idea. Next up, I have Amumu. So Amumu stayed a very consistent pick for solo queue for quite some time now. He's got good AoE crowd control with his ultimate, and his Q also allows him to engage from a distance. I really like that his build path is very versatile. You can go full AP Amumu if you do get ahead with him. If you're going even or if you are behind, then you can go full tank or you can go AP Bruiser Amumu and you can still do really well. And last but not least on the honorable mentions for this patch, I have Master Yi. So if you guys have been around the channel for a while now, you probably know that I usually don't include Yi in my list for jungle. I decided that I pretty much needed to include him this patch though, because he's really strong with the on-hit damage build that we're seeing right now. He can build like a few damage items, then he can go tanky after that, and he can still do so much damage, but he's going to be able to soak a lot in team fights as well. So I think that just due to the fact that he's got a really nice build path right now and that he's a very simple champion to play, he's a pretty good pick right now. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. If you did enjoy, then don't forget to drop a like and subscribe if you have not already. So thanks for watching, guys. Have an awesome day, and I will see you in my next video.